Private leagues, according to me, are organized only for the sake of corruption, not for the sake of, popularizing cricket. Most worrying part is the selection process, which is kind of used by the selectors at the junior levels to make money. It is also used to extort other kind of favors, including sexual favors. If you just extend it and bring it towards the women's league, you can imagine what all can happen.
As we count down to another season of IPL, an explosive interview with former Delhi Police Commissioner Mr. Neeraj Kumar, who was also a former advisor to the BCCI and its anti-corruption unit. Well, he joins me on Table Talk to speak about his book, A Cop in Cricket, and that hasn't opened a Pandora's box. But he also tells us that corruption has not ended in Indian cricket. Before I move ahead, a quick reminder to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jyotsna. Mr. Kumar, thank you so much for joining me today and, to open up a little bit more on what it takes to write a book of such a sensitive matter in a sense, cricket is such it's a sport. It is our big sport and the big love of our country. But, I'm going to go straight into the jugular and ask you, according to you, what has been the biggest revelation?
Most definitely, the utter indifference of our prime cricketing body of cricket administrators, namely the BCCI, to this whole issue of corruption in cricket. So if our primary cricketing body is so indifferent, so callous, you can imagine how cricket in this country is being corrupted.
I'm going to divide this into, the top level cricket and first class cricket going down to domestic cricket. Is it corruption free?
Definitely not. That is very clear.
So when you say not, are we, which levels do is it the leagues? Is it just top cricket as we speak? We say test cricket. If you just want to elaborate a little bit on that, sir.
The top levels are relatively far more manageable from corruption point of view. By manageable, I mean that already this message has gone into the head of every top cricketer that if they are playing the game at that level and if they slip up, by slip up I mean that if they indulge in hanky-panky, they accept offers of money from bookies or fixers, then they are going to be in serious trouble. Not only will some proceedings be launched against them, they will be banned for life and their cricketing careers will be over. We have made good examples out of Mohammad Azharuddin, Ajay Jadeja and the likes of them, and more recently of Srishant and others. So they are aware of the very strong conduct code that is there in the top levels of cricket. However, the same cannot be said of the lower levels, by which I mean the first class cricket and the domestic cricket and so on. And particularly the private leagues. Private leagues, according to me, are organized only for the sake of corruption, not for the sake of, popularizing cricket or bringing popular cricket to the doorstep of an ordinary spectator. It is organized primarily to be live streamed on YouTube or on any TV channel, following which betting immediately commences, and so do illegal approaches and compromising of players and pre-scripting the game and players following that script to the T. And that makes it very, very murky.
You were so deeply into it for 3 years, sir. And when you speak about the private leagues and these cricketers following the script, they're also prioritizing these leagues actually so many times over playing for the country. What was your reaction when you saw that up close and personal?
So that is precisely what I'm saying, that these private leagues can be a highly remunerative exercise if our players are invited to play them. And that is why they sometimes leave important matches or important fixtures and travel even overseas to participate in such leagues. So that itself explains and tells you the level of corruption that there exists in those games.
What kind of issues did you A, flag while you were there? Also, B, was any action taken on the issues that you flagged?
I flagged several issues, right from the utter lack of resources that were there in the anti-corruption unit. A country of our size, with so many matches going on, so many players playing, who all needed to be properly educated in the anti-corruption code and the likelihood of them being approached, them being corrupted, etc., and how they should react, what should they do if they are approached. So we needed huge kind of resources at our disposal, but it was never made available. All my emails were totally ignored, never replied to. As I've said again and again in the book, in my 3 years, not even once, would you believe it, Jyotsna, that not even once did anybody in the board ask me, what is the corruption scene in the country? What should we be doing? What are you doing? Are there any shortfalls anywhere? No such interest was shown by anybody. That is my pity.
You also mentioned, power and perf, the whole attachment to that. Where does that leave BCCI? I mean, and also actually the whole underbelly of cricket. It's an open secret, but it's also a deeply guarded secret. This whole, following of power, following of the financial aspect of it. What does it take also to write a book of this, this kind?
I was very aware that I am opening up a can of worms, and I was also aware, and I continue to be so, that I can be sued for libel, I can be sued for contempt, and so on and so forth. I've also got calls already from various quarters, saying that, well, who are you referring to? You have not, you have made many suggestive, indications here and there. Are you referring to Mr. So and so or no? So already there is a lot of buzz in those quarters, but so far nothing concrete has emerged.
Has there been any kind of reaction from the BCCI whatsoever? Has anybody, got in touch with you?
No, not so far. Some people have read the book and they have called up to say you have written a good book, good read, and so on and so forth. But they have not touched on the core issues.
I'm going to go back also when we're speaking of the BCCI, your tenure in the BCCI. What was the relationship like there, with the various officials?
There was no relationship. That has been the central theme of my book, in the sense that I was largely ignored. And more, this was more kind of striking and painful because it was all coming in the wake of the 2013 spot fixing case. The entire top management of the BCCI had been sent packing because of that case. That it was a case of corruption. And therefore, I had expected that corruption would be the topmost priority of the board. And that is why perhaps I have been taken in, because of my experience in dealing with cases of match fixing, spot fixing, and perhaps every major investigation connected with corruption in cricket I had been associated with. So I thought, foolishly though, as I realize in hindsight, that I have been taken into the board for my vast experience in that area, but nobody cared. That is what was the most painful part of the experience of being there for 3 years.
Also, ironically, I mean, those who were meant to clean up were actually, as you've said in your book, kind of causing more of, dirtying the waters, as they say.
Yeah, that was also unfortunate because there were opportunities where which could have been used to set up some kind of a regime or some kind of traditions going into the future, but nothing of the sort happened.
So, what stops, in your opinion, and you've seen this very closely, what stops the BCCI from cleaning up the act?
If we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, Jyotsna, then I feel that it is lack of awareness to begin with. They are not aware of what this is all about, first of all. Secondly, they do not want to become aware. That is I mean, you don't have, it is not rocket science that you can't learn about it. If you just talk to the officers, there are already in the board and they continue to be there even now, uh, you will get to know all about it. So you have to make an effort, but that effort is not made. I don't know why. And, you know, it is high time that we laid down processes, we laid down standard operating procedures, we laid down best practices which ought to be followed, and so on and so forth. But I mean, I really don't know if it is not happening, and it did not happen even when a topmost administrator from our country was helming the board. It did not happen even then. So we can't speak of the politicians and others who head the state cricket associations and also the central body.
There's also the whole, Vinod Rai and the protection of Jory, in a sense, all that kind of, there's the Dinah Adalji episode, all of that kind of filters down. How does the morale continue to remain up around the others, who are not at the top of decision making?
I mean, you're asking the wrong person. I really don't know. See, the point is, I, I agree that the core function of the board is the running of cricket, right? Corruption is an important issue, a very important issue, but it is not the central activity. So, to that extent, I cannot be saying that, well, the chief of the anti corruption unit should be there in every board meeting and so on. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there should be a regular meeting of minds between the top bosses and the top officials of the anti corruption unit. And as I said, best practices should be discussed, should be listed out, and followed. That is the that is the common sense. Why it is not done? It has beaten me. It beat me for 3 years, and it continues to befuddle me even till today.
So was it just that whatever recommendations you gave were not accepted, or were you also stonewalled openly?
No, they were all accepted, but they were accepted after I had left. I mean, only the implementation that additional manpower was given, some parity was brought in the salaries of the anti-corruption unit officials with others, and so on and so forth. But a lot more progress ought to be made in the entire strategy of fighting corruption in the game. And what we have to realize that we are the leading cricketing country in the world. So we should be setting standards for the rest of the world to follow. Our anti-corruption unit should be the benchmark for others to emulate. But it has not happened.
So, when knowing what you do know, and when you see that, new leagues like the Women's League has started now, what goes through your mind?
Women's League really kind of bothers me from the corruption point of view, because it is a soft target. The controls are not as strong as it is there in the men's league. And if we treat it differently, if we treat it lightly, there can be scandals there. That is my apprehension.
And it's unfortunate, isn't it? Because, here we're looking at parity for women sports people, and they kind of get into this system which is on a back foot.
Yeah, God forbid if any such unfortunate thing were to happen in the women's league, the entire parity thing will go for a big six.
I wanted to, speak to you a little bit more about domestic cricket, first class cricket, junior cricket, and what the kind of issues that you saw and you flagged there.
The most worrying part is the selection process, which is kind of used by the selectors at the junior levels to make money. That is the most worrying part. It is also used to extort other kind of favors, including sexual favors, which I've written about. So if you just extend it and bring it towards the women's league, you can imagine what all can happen. And I am privy to certain information, especially with the cricket academies, what kind of exploitation goes on of girls there. So, junior level cricket is fraught with corruption and of a different level altogether, which is very worrying. See, my thesis is that the top level cricketers who play the top level game, they come through this system, they rise through this system, which is highly corrupted. And if we do not pay attention to those levels, we do not fight corruption at those levels, then what do you expect of a player who comes through that system and reaches the top? In the example of none other than Mr. Virat Kohli, whose father was asked to pay a bribe, which he himself has said in an interview that he gave to one of the sports magazines. So that only proves the point that we have to be very watchful and we have to keep an eye at the State Cricket Association activities also. But no such interest was ever shown as long as I was there.
And there's no accountability for the state associations, right?
None whatsoever. Whether it is financial, whether it is administrative, you just hold the matches. The IPL matches should go on nicely, and that's it. And even there, I've said that the facilities that are provided to the spectators are abysmally poor. Abysmally poor. And as I said, we are the world's leading cricketing country. Our stadia should provide state-of-the-art facilities to the spectators. But you go and check out yourself and you will realize what kind of facilities are there.
It's really sad, where we are. Where does this money go then?
If we go by anecdotal evidence, and I've given the example of one such state association, and my sense is that it is fairly rampant. It lands up into people's private accounts. There have been many instances where money doled out by the BCCI to state cricket associations found its way into the private accounts of the state level cricket administrators. And I've quoted from Mr. Ramchandra Guha's book, Commonwealth of Cricket, where he took notes during a presentation made by Deloitte, auditing company. And whatever they reported Mr. Guha very religiously made notes, and he has reproduced them in his book. Uh, it gives you a sense of what goes on in State Cricket Association, and no wonder that there is so much of maramari, I would call it, in becoming the president or the secretary of these state cricket associations.
Yeah, that's another game altogether, isn't it? The whole elections for these.
Absolutely.
It sounds, it's unfortunate, but it sounds more like the whole mafia. Like we speak about different kind of mafia and different, different issues, and this sounds like one of those. But in your opinion, and you've seen everything so close, what are the top things that could be done, or is it too late to clean up Indian cricket?
Not at all. It is never too late, and things could be straightened out quite quickly. I feel very quickly. The first and foremost thing that I have recommended in the book as well is that we must enact a Sports Integrity Act, which defines what, say, a corrupt approach is in terms of the law. If, say, a bookie makes an approach to a cricketer that you do so and so favor to me, you bowl a no ball on the fourth ball of your third over, and I'll pay you so much money. Now, this approach, how do you deal with it in law? As per the existing law, it does not make out a criminal offense, but it should. So, for that, you need to have a specific legislation, a draft bill, a draft sports integrity bill is already pending before the parliament. And therefore, all we need to do is enact that law so that corruption in sport in general, not only cricket, in every sport is kind of defined. I'll just give you an example. Now, the Muhammad Azharuddin case, if you recall, there was an inquiry, CBI inquiry, but the CBI could not register a criminal case against those cricketers, Mohammad Azharuddin, Ajay Jadeja, Manoj Prabhakar, Ajay Sharma. Why? Because there is no law. The case against Srishant, Ajit Chandila and Ankit Chavan during the 2013 spot fixing inquiry has virtually failed because the judge very clearly spelled out in her judgment that there is a vacuum in law to deal with this kind of malfeasance. So we first of all need a strong sports integrity bill in the country. Secondly, we should have very strong culture of following an anti-corruption code. This again does not apply only to cricket. It applies to every sport. All sportsmen should be given extensive education about the possibility of them being corrupted and how and what they should do in those situations. That should be the next agenda. The third should be maintaining very close eye on the proceedings of the game. The anti-corruption officers in cricket I have seen are aware of what all steps need to be taken while a game is on or while a game is about to be played. So all those things should be very strongly enforced, and it should be extended to other sports also. So we can do a lot, and we don't have to spend much money over it. If you want to enact a law, you don't need money for it. If you want to educate sports people, you don't need money for it really. It is just the will and the knowledge that we must do it, and we will do it.
Needs a lot of intent, and that I think is the big one.
Yes.
As you've been Commissioner of Police in Delhi, you've dealt with a lot. When you were going to, when you agreed to take up this job, in a sense, this tenure of 3 years, did you have an inkling of what to expect, or was it a big learning for you?
It was a huge learning for me. I did not expect what was coming. I knew that I'm not heading that body and I should not expect the same treatment as I did when I was, say, Commissioner of Police Delhi. Um, I was there and I was going to head a certain part of that establishment, which was rather peripheral to their core functions. But I had not expected that I'll get that kind of treatment, which I got.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining me today and just, giving us an insight into what it took to write a book that is, well, ruffled, definitely ruffled a few feathers. But I think, as I said, it was much needed, and hopefully something will be done, and hopefully somebody is going to look out to what you've said in terms of cleaning up the system. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for having me on this show.